Hey, yo, this is Cash on the Hood with your host, Jason Sauer. We're here with Steven Sickles, and we're going to be talking about art, hustle, and demolition derby. Say hi, Steven.
Hi, guys. Episode 2 coming at you.
That's great. As you may have just heard, Steven was on episode 1. Steven has so much hustle that we need to have 2 episodes with Steven. He has so much to talk about. So thank you for listening to episode 1. So check it out. I need to let you know about the business. The business is you need to subscribe on all audio platforms or any audio platform to Cash on the Hood. You can go to Instagram, Cash on the Hood, Facebook, Cash on the Hood. But Steve and I want you to follow our TikTok accounts. So follow me at Most Wanted Fine Art. Steven, what's your TikTok?
At Sickles911.
At Sickles911. His TikTok is banging. He's got videos on there, how to do demolition derby cars, how to build them. Steven's a winner. So
just following the current trends as well. The fun stuff.
That's the current trend. So again, if you got opportunity, please go to our YouTube, Most Wanted Fine Art on YouTube. So these audio podcasts get recorded, and then we send them to our main man, Gerardo, in Mexico. He puts some graphics on them, puts them back on YouTube, and they drop on the same day as the podcast. So one more shout out while we're here. Our main man, producer, Brian Cottington with the Cinema Psychos podcast, 242 episodes. We are surrounded by experience, and we're very thankful that we have this type of opportunity here in the city of Pittsburgh. So again, what we talk about is art, hustle, and demolition derby. So I wrote down some questions, Steven, because I wanted to be prepared for you because I care about you, and I want the world to know what you do. It's pretty interesting. So Steven Sickles, we're going to just jump right into the hustle. Like, we'll talk about art in a little bit, but your hustle game is so incredible. You are like a 5 a.m. to 5 a.m. guy. I watched you buy a car on your phone in between takes.
It happens.
It's pretty incredible. So, if you don't know, Steven Sickles is one of the biggest, if not premier, how do I describe you in the words of catalytic converters? And people who don't know about catalytic converters is what's being stolen from underneath your car because it's full of precious metals. Yeah. Tell them about what precious metals are, Steven.
So I'm way more modest than Jason. I'm definitely not the biggest, but platinum, palladium, and rhodium are the 3 main metals. There's a lot of other metals inside of them, but those are the most valuable and what we need to watch for on the stock market and follow along.
I think that's interesting. A mechanic such as yourself wakes up every morning and looks at the stock market to know how your catalytic converter business is going to go for the day. Is that right?
Every morning. Sometimes I'm waking up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. looking at the market in Zurich and like trying to figure out the different Chinese markets, like how it's going to affect American markets when it opens. I mean, it isn't just in the mornings. It's all the time.
Now, catalytic converter is a part of the exhaust system of a car, and it's very lucrative. I'm not trying to get into your big numbers. Well, on average, what does a catalytic converter bring in?
I mean, it's went all the way up. I've seen averages hit $400, but it's in the mid to low 200s right now each. So now that's OEM, so that's original, not replaced. But
right. So when Steven says OEM, he means the original equipment from the manufacturer. So when you look underneath your car, Steven's going to know the difference between a catalytic converter. So, back up. You get a check engine light in your car, and if it ends up being a catalytic converter, so what is the catalytic converter wants to run at 100% efficiency. And once the cars get to about 80% efficiency, then the check engine light comes on. Is this correct?
Yeah, so there's a filtration system. It actually looks like a screen, and the different metals catch different stuff coming out of the engine to save our air. So there's different emissions regulations for different counties and stuff. That's where there could be the same year car and it could be different values based on where the car was made and when it was going out. But once your car starts running dirty, I would call it, it could cause a lot of other problems. So a lot of people don't realize that once your check engine light comes on and they're like, oh, it's nothing major, it's just a cat. Well, 2-3 months later, they don't have a motor. They're like, why did my motor blow up? Oh, well, when we change your motor, we look at your cat's melted into itself. It has nowhere for the airflow to go. So it ends up pushing back into the engine and causing damage.
And so when the mechanic takes off that catalytic converter, they replace it with one that doesn't have as much palladium and stuff in it.
Correct. So the emission standards on the aftermarkets aren't quite as high because I guess the government feels that that car's already been on the road for X amount of miles. So if that OEM one's supposed to last 200,000, chances are your car might not last another 200,000. So it doesn't need to be as efficient.
So last night I was at an art show last night, and I was telling everybody that would listen to me about you and what we were going to talk about today. This guy, ear hustling, comes over. He goes, I just had the catalytic converter stolen off my Prius 2 nights ago.
Unfortunately, it happens way too much, and Prius is one of the most sought after.
I asked him first thing, is that a Gen 1 Prius? He said he thinks it's a Gen 2, but he doesn't know about cars. So he's right on the line.
Were you trying to get another puppy Prius, or were you just curious?
Well, he writes for the national news, so I wanted to let him know that we were creating this podcast. So I was telling him stories about us, and he's been following us since 2004. So he writes for NPR, which is the national news. He used to write for the city paper here, and then he graduated from there to the local newspapers to now he writes for the national news. He writes for the national news. He's interested in our all-black demolition derby team, but I'm not going to get into that. We're here with Steven Sickles and talk about that. So Steven Sickles, to recap, buys and sells catalytic converters. That's his hustle. It's a real hustle.
I actually do all automotive cores, but that seems to be the most lucrative, so that's what gets talked about the most.
Well, I mean, you have how many pallets of batteries?
I have more batteries than I care to mention.
Okay. Oh, that's right. We were not trying to tell everybody all your business. But yeah, so what is valuable on a car? What are like the top 4 things that someone is, before they take a car to scrap?
You know, I mean, you got to weigh your options. A lot of scrap yards have been paying inclined prices whole. So like, I actually buy a lot of my automotive cores off yards and shops. So I'm not going to tell anyone that they shouldn't take their car complete to the junkyard. But if you were to want to do the legwork yourself, you're going to want to look at the converter. You're going to want to look at the wheels. You're going to look at the battery.
Radiator? Radiators are too small.
It depends. I mean, if it's a copper, if it's aluminum, it's hit or miss. It's depending on how much work you want to do. Some of the engine accessories, some of the, if you get into diesels, some of the turbos, the injectors, all that stuff's worth money, and they need it to rebuild.
How did you get started? How did you decide? You're like, I'm quitting this sales job I have, and I'm going all in. Well,
actually, I went all in right away. I went back into a sales job to try and help a friend's company, but I came back from college, and my dad has a garage, has had it since I was born. We had a core buyer. That's what my title I would consider, core buyer. So we had a core buyer, and he was coming around to our shop every week. And man, was he taking advantage of my dad and my uncle. I mean, I ended up just doing some research and finding out they were getting like 50% of the value. So when I started, I swore that I wouldn't make any more than 10%. Now, there's been a few occasions where I've done a little bit more of the legwork that I've made a little bit more, but I generally never make any more than 10% on any product. That's just been my motto, and it seemed to work.
I thought you moved down to 7% for volume.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, depending on the yard or the business, if they have volume, 5 to 7. So it's been a lot more cutthroat recently. So, I mean, you got to do what you got to do and got to keep your customers happy. But I ended up just doing some research and finding out that this dude was literally taking advantage of my father. And my dad's a guy that'd give the shirt off his back and do anything for you. So I ended up doing my own legwork and getting in touch with these companies and different core companies and going from there.
That's pretty. So I don't know much about it. I know there's two core processing facilities in America. Is this true?
There's a lot of processors. As far as actual refineries and smelters, there isn't as many. a lot of the material ends up at BASF, which is based out of New Jersey. That's where most of my material ends up at the end of the day.
That's pretty interesting. You move a lot of material, that's for certain. Now, with all that investment, I've seen you try to dabble in the stock market. Like we talked about, you wake up in the morning looking at stocks. Did you ever get a Robinhood account?
Yeah, I have Robinhood. I'd love to get more into it and branch off because a lot of the stocks I want to invest aren't on there. But
okay,
for a beginner, it was user friendly.
So, do you have a lot of stocks?
Yeah, I still have a good bit of stocks in Neo, which is down and hurting my wallet. But I have some Carnival. I have some different ones that I feel that will rebound after all this stuff sort of levels out.
I'm gonna show my age here. I love the TV show Family Ties, and the character on there was a young Republican who loved the stock market, and I wanted to be just like him. So I bought stocks at age 9 with my paper route money. We had a stockbroker in the family who sold me my first stocks. I bought McDonald's. My first stock was McDonald's. Then when I joined the Army, got into college, I used that. So I had $50 when I was 9 years old. And I ended up with a couple grand by the time I got to college, and it helped me because the GI Bill only gave me like $80. So I was like, I'm old enough that my GI Bill was like from Vietnam, even though my weapons were from Vietnam. Like all the stuff, I was old. So but I really wanted to be that young Republican who dabbled in stocks. But now that I learn more about stocks, I feel like it's kind of lazy. I feel like you're trying to cheat your way to the top. Like, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I just did it for a side hustle. I like to have many avenues of ways to try and make money. And originally, you try and get on the biggest craze or hype. I did well with Dogecoin for like a whole 2 weeks, and I ended up making a couple $1,000s on that and left my initial investment in there. Now it's went to hell. But
okay.
So that was probably my biggest hit. The rest of them, I've definitely went a different route. Like my Neo investment is a long-term play. I won't pull that out because, I mean, look at it now. I know you use that for your GI Bill, but how much would that McDonald's stock be now?
Who knows? I would probably be at $10,000 with that $50 investment.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's sort of what I'm trying to do, sort of like a savings account that has a possibility of a higher interest return. I mean, that's what sense. I'm doing. To each their own.
No, I mean, there's reasons why you play in the stock market, and there's reasons why you just why people say what I just said.
I don't think the get rich quick, the lazier style, that isn't me. I'm not. I mean, I did it with the Doge one time because my friends talked me into it, but I don't think that's something I'm going to keep trying to do because, I mean, I don't see it working. Yeah,
that's right now is the NFT market. So whenever I went to Art Basel in Miami, we had a drinking game. Anytime anybody said the word NFT or blockchain, you had to take a drink. And like by mid-morning, I was done drinking. I was like, I can't do any more NFT, any more blockchain. So when I go to Art Basel, it is all about the get rich quick kind of mentality. And that's not who you and I are. We're all about the 12-hour day, more than that, try to earn our money, put our money in real estate. You know, I know that you and I both have real estate holdings.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a good thing to be in. We kind of do it differently. I buy junk houses because that's all I can afford, and then we spend the next 3 years renovating them.
Well, some of mine have been. I mean, my initial rental were tax sale houses, so they were left abandoned in whatever condition, and neighbors or people or whoever or the last person that was in it stole all the copper. I mean, I've had to go from the ground up.
Oh, yeah. So that's I guess part of the hustle that I'm talking about here. It's interesting. What other investments do you have other than your cores, your stocks, and your real estate? Do you have any other investments or is that your big three?
I'd say that's my big three. I mean, I have a ton of automobiles myself. I have a ton in storage.
All right, so you're investing in cars as a return on investment?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I try to make a lot of smart decisions when I purchase things and think about what it's going to be down the road. So,
what is down the road for Steven Sickles?
I haven't determined that yet. I'm still on the road traveling. I haven't seen an exit sign.
Well, you're right now the reigning world champ in Demolition Derby from the point series.
Yeah, so to touch on that a second, that was in 2021. That was the ME 527 point series, and that traveled everywhere from Illinois to Florida to New York. So pretty big triangle of our country, and get to follow along.
Who is ME 527?
So that's Mark Elliott, and I met him years ago working for Bo Lockwood. Bo Lockwood had his own point series. It was a little bit different, but Mark would come in and inspect and then end up turning into announcing. And he ended up being a friend, and he's one of the better announcers in the country for Demolition Derbies, if you ask me. So initially it was supporting him. I mean, I have his original shirt. There's pictures of me in 2019 before he had the series winning the Derby at Westmoreland County Fair with his shirt on, and I just always supported him. But when he had that point series come out, it sort of fit my driving style because it's about winning, and it doesn't matter what class you win in. So when I derby, I run compacts, I run big cars, I run minivans, I run about anything you can. Any car I get in that I feel is good enough to derby, I try and hit the track with it.
Now, from our first podcast episode, we talked about your 2-car trailer. Now, what I know about you is if you don't you take 2 cars to a derby, and this is the rumor, if you don't win with that first car, you pull the next car off the trailer and try to win with it.
Yeah, so in the point series, you can score once a night. Your highest score carries. So last year I had a strategy. I went in very prepared for the season, started building cars in the winter. I took 2 cars to a lot of these smaller shows, and, I barely ever used a second car. I don't even know that I did. But mentally, it put me in a place that I don't know if it was the pressure was off of me in the first car that I had to. Because I tried the point series the first year, actually.
Yeah, it did not go well for you.
No, ton of 4th places. It was a bad year. Man,
we were rooting for you. But.
Go out of town, travel 6-7 hours, and get 4th on a Friday night, go an hour to another fair in Ohio, and get 4th the Saturday night. I mean, you just go home with your tail tucked between your legs and feel like, man, why do I even derby? But no, I kept my head down and kept digging and became a lot more prepared. So that was the big difference in 2021 compared to 2020. Like you mentioned, I took 2 cars to a ton of shows, but I don't know that I ever used a second car until it came later in the year, and then it was just for fun at that point.
Yeah, you were doing victory laps.
Yeah, so
you had it locked up by I don't know what, 3/4 of the way through
mid-end August. So, I mean,
yeah.
This year it's a little bit tighter chase, and I'm actually in second. I'm down 18 points, so we'll see if I can rally the troops, I guess.
How many points do you get for a win?
It goes by how much the class pays. Last year, in the previous years, it was always 10 points for a win, 8 for second, and 6 for third. This year, if the class pays more money, there are some bonuses, but an average win is 10 points.
All right, so you are 2 wins away, as long as your competitor gets 4th place twice.
Correct.
All right, that's pretty close, right?
Yep.
I think that's pretty awesome, Steven. How do you think winning the championship has it changed your life at all? Is there anything that comes with it?
No, I wouldn't say it's really changed my life. The only thing that it did for me was the satisfaction of my personal goal. So I set out for that goal. I hit that goal, and I didn't stop till I did. This year I wasn't really trying to run, so it's not the same. I'm just there, and I decided after a little while that, hey, I might have a shot at still winning this. So I'm not as prepared. I'm just seeing what I can do, shake it up, and keep it interesting.
Well, I'm watching you chase down another goal this season, which is your bucket list of derbies.
Yeah, so I knocked a few off that bucket list.
What is your bucket list?
I'd like to try in Derby, and I mean, I don't know if I'll ever get it, so I don't want to say every state, but I'd like to try in Derby and damn near every state.
So you're looking for the 48. The lower 48 is what you're trying to...
I want to try and find one in Alaska. Alaska. I'm mixing Alaska and Hawaii. I'm thinking of both of them at the same time. I'd like to try and find them out there, too, but I mean, I might have to call a banger race or something to Derby just to get it off the list.
That banger race is insane. So if you don't know what banger racing is, there are people who are listening to us. They do it in Europe. It's much like Demolition Derby, but you're doing 70 miles an hour instead of 30.
Yeah, they have some testicular fortitude, the Derby drivers.
I'm not
sure I want to do it, but I probably would to check it off the list.
I would be scared. I would not want to be blasted at 70 miles per hour. That's no way, Steven.
No. The cages they have in them cars are insane, but they still don't look enough.
They fold. It's too much. It's crazy.
So going off that list, me and you shared a pretty good adventure a couple weeks ago. We went to California and checked one off.
So we got to salute our friends, the Delara Towing.
Huge shout out to the Delaras.
So what happened was there's a Demolition Derby in Chino, California that has a moat in it. Okay. And this year, it's a literal moat. Before this year, it was just a ditch. But when we got there this year, someone had hit the water main, and now the ditch was full of water. So normally on a Demolition Derby track, if you've been to your local fair, growing up, if you did a nationwide show, it was telephone poles that ring the track. And then there's the concrete barriers.
Some places have tires.
Some places, like New Alex, has tires buried in the ground. So there's all different ways to keep the cars from entering the crowd. In California, they put a ditch between you and the crowd, and you can get blasted through that ditch and all the way up into the crowd. They are on top of it.
It's pretty wild.
So I was like, Steven, please. I wanted to take a 2-car trailer across America, but the gas at the time that we were doing it ended up being near $6. So we were like, we're not doing it. We're going the rental route. Let's rent some cars. Let's trade some cars. So what we did is we traded the Delaras 2 cars, so when they come here to Pittsburgh, we'll have a bunch of cars for them to run in the Demolition Derby. So I think it's pretty cool. So you've never ran in California. Have you ever even been to California?
I had never been to California before that.
So you came up with a pretty crazy plan, which was fly to Vegas, rent a car, drive to California, and then drive back to Vegas with me.
I don't know if it's crazy. It sounds fun.
Well, I mean, it is fun. Okay, I'm sorry. I misspoke.
Nothing's crazy in our lives anymore, Jason.
No, it isn't. So Steven's like, all right, I'm going a week early with my girlfriend. We're going to have a nice vacation. And then I'll pick you up at LAX because it's closer to the Delaras in Coachella. So Steven says, I'm not picking you up unless you're wearing your helmet out there in the pickup line.
That airport was crowded. I had no way to tell you.
I mean, but I knew I was in the land of make-believe, so I was like, let's throw this helmet on. We're here for the show anyway.
Yeah, it was a joke, and you actually just went along with it. So,
well, I didn't fully put it. I had it on top of my head, squeezing my head, but that way you could find me. That ended up being a really fun derby. You did really well until we got put in the ditch. So you and I made it out of the heat, so we didn't have to run the consolation. That was pretty cool. There wasn't much to fix on our cars, thank goodness. That way,
just some sheet metal work. We didn't take any bad shots.
Yeah, the tires were still on the car. Everything was good. And then you and I went out to the feature. We did our game plan, which was stay in the middle. And then we started fading. And before I knew it, I was near an edge, and bam, got blasted right in the ditch like a rookie. Yeah. I was bummed that's how it ended because we had good, strong running cars that could have went a little further than they did.
Absolutely. I got down to 5th, and I feel that I definitely could have had a top 3 car for sure.
Same here.
My entire mentality going into that whole derby was stay away from that ditch. And I don't know what happened, just a moment of lapse. I got pushed towards it, and I accidentally grabbed the shifter and put it in drive and went with the guy. So,
dang it.
I almost did it to myself. I'm still beating myself up.
That's a tough one. It's fun. That California Derby was a ton of fun. The crowd was enthusiastic. It was packed. That was Eric Brown and WGAS Motorsports.
That crowd really gets into it. I mean, I came out the car, I hopped the fence, and I had people taking TikToks with me because I'm a demolition derby driver. And I'm like, I'm not one of the ones that were going, wow, you should go get one of them guys. But they just loved it that much that they were like, we can't even believe you do this.
It was fun. We were set up like, heroes, like celebrities. Like we were the action stars of the event. We're so used to derby where we're just like, okay, shake hands, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when I do it like 2-3 times a week, it feels like.
Right, but out there, it really was. There, people were in awe. Like, we're in awe of banger racing drivers. They're in awe of us having, just the ability to go out there and not be completely scared. And, so it was fun. California was a great and fun time. And I loved it. I thought it was great.
Oh, I enjoyed it. If they ever want to trade any more builds, I'd be interested in going back.
Heck yeah. What other states did you pick off this year?
Well, this year I did North Carolina. I picked that one off.
Our man Fur.
Yeah, he helped me manage that a little bit. Where else did I pick off?
Did you go to South Carolina? Did you miss that show?
No, I ended up missing that show. I had the car built and had some personal issues come up. I know I checked another one off, and I just cannot think.
Was it Virginia?
No, I checked Virginia off years ago. I mean, I got 14 or 15 states down, so I mean, if I average like 2 or 3 a year, I can possibly do this.
I think it'll be fine. I think
it's like a 15-year plan.
Well, it's good to have a goal, and that's what we do. We don't try to get it all in one night. That's what makes us, why we're brothers.
Not only the states, I forgot I want to add Canada too. I mean, I got to add Canada.
Mm-hmm. And Mexico.
Yeah. Do they have derbies down there? I don't. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, Gerardo told me that he saw of one on a poster, but he didn't really find out about it. But yeah, we're gonna try to push it. Who knows?
Yeah, I've tried to look up Hawaii because I want to get Hawaii sooner than later.
Right.
Just to go, but
I wonder what it'd be like. I wouldn't think the cars were rusty in Hawaii, but maybe from the salt air, because like North Carolina cars on the coast are rusty from the salt air.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even looked into like their process of like junking and getting rid of cars. So I mean, is there a market for that? Is it down? Is it high? I've never looked at that.
That's pretty. Yes, exactly.
So I mean, them cars over there might not be worth much to people, where they might be worth more. So it might not even be feasible.
Yeah, I know that when I was in the military, they would ship your car if you were stationed in Hawaii. They would ship your car to Hawaii for you.
Yes, I'm sure they're shipping a ton of cars over there, but do they ship them all back across? I mean,
it's already halfway to China.
Yeah, I mean, I guess put it on a ship and go that way.
Right, it's not going back to L.A.
Yeah, turn into more microwaves.
That's pretty good. All right, so our last podcast, we're talking about you being the founder of the Most Wanted Car Club. And it was not the Most Wanted Car Club when we started this project. What is our friends from Dormont kind of coined the phrase for us. We were just dudes who had spray painted cars, who had art cars, and that just was our identity. It was fun to have a car that was wild looking and different. And what about your personality says, I like a spray painted car?
For me, it was being around a sport of demolition derby for so many years and seeing the different paint jobs on the different cars. So I was like, man, I know I'm going to be running a ton of demolition derbies. How cool would it be to pull into the pits, truck, trailer, everything set up combination? Mm-hmm. So that was my original idea. And the truck, when I bought it, was a couple different colors. So sort of played into it. I would say that I just have never been scared of being bold compared to some people. So like having my name plastered in black and orange and red and yellow down the whole side of my truck. Some people were like, that's crazy. I'm like, so?
Your dad thinks it's crazy. Still does.
He got over it.
All right, speaking about being bold and brave, Steven, when I first met you, I was hosting my annual baseball game where I buy 100 tickets in the PNC Park, and I bring a bunch of wild and rowdy people who are not interested in baseball at all. They're just there for the commemorative T-shirt that we make and the beer drinking. You and I just became Facebook friends, And you're like, what's going on? I'm like, hey, man, want to come to this baseball game? And you're like, I'll come. So you roll up in Northside Park where we hang out before the game with 100 people. You walk in.
A little bit late.
Perfectly timed.
Fashionably.
Because I had made mention, like, of those 100 people, 95 of them knew the other 95. All right? We're all from the art scene in Pittsburgh or however, you know, clients of mine, however that worked out. But you, brave Steven, did not know a single person, and you barely knew me. And I saw when you walked in, and I scanned the 100 people, I'm like, there is no other derby driver in this crowd of 100 artists other than myself. So I said, all right, because that was the first thing you asked me. You're like, is there any other derby drivers here? And I thought Greg Houlette was coming, but he didn't make it. So I'm like, okay, it's just me. So let's just hang out, you and me, because you don't know all these people, and we'll just hang out together. So that was my first impression of how bold you are, that you were comfortable walking into a crowd of 100 people that you didn't know, going to a baseball game, which I'm sure you're not interested in.
I actually love the Pirates.
Do you?
Yeah, I used to follow them die hard until they got rid of McCutcheon and started getting rid of a good roster. But
well, okay. That's, again, I'm learning more about you than ever. So that was my first impression of you, was how strong emotionally you are. Because I'm hanging out with artists. They're not all strong emotionally. All right? They're kind of flaky. They don't want to.
You did an awesome job of making me feel very welcome there that day. I mean, you did.
I didn't want you to think that I just invited you just to be a number. I wanted you to know that at Most Wanted Fine Art, we care about you. We care about all 100 people that are here, and we want to see all 100 people succeed. I mean, that's just my personality. I want anybody that's anywhere around me, I want them to be successful. You know what I mean? So I was always impressed, and every time I tell a story about Steven Sickles, I kind of lead with that story about your energy to try new things. You have this part of your personality that just wants to try new stuff. And I don't know how you're not in jail, like, because you got that risk-taking personality, but you managed to kind of walk the line of risk-taking personality and fun-loving guy.
I have a good attorney. No, I'm kidding.
I've always been impressed with how you carried yourself. You know what I mean? So that's why I brought you in here, guest one, guest two. I think that's really refreshing in today's, not that it's different. It's just that I don't always run into people who are so outgoing, who, really will feel confident in themselves that they can hang out for 5 hours in a space where they don't know anybody.
I feel our culture today is a lot more timid and shy. I definitely can agree with what you're saying. I loved it. And then I think we painted the truck shortly after that. Yeah, maybe. I mean, was it the next summer?
Yeah, probably a year later.
Yeah.
But we've been hanging out basically ever since.
Yeah, built you some cars.
You built me my only first place winning. So you have probably 1,000 trophies. I have 3. One of them's a participation trophy from Sargent Sons for having the most underbuilt car for years on end. They're like, congratulations. I once got a heat trophy where I made it out of a heat. And you got heat trophies back in the day. So I got a heat trophy. And then I have a 6-foot trophy for a minivan that you bought me or built me. And so all 2 of my trophies are in my bathroom. And so I sit there and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I know that you probably have a storage room full of trophies.
I have them in a couple different places.
I bet. As many trophies as you have, it's going to be impressive. So I am always thankful to you and Bad Habit for helping me out getting my one and only win. So it feels pretty good. I've never been in a winning seat before. I like whenever I get to like a top 5, I feel like I won because I'm looking around the track and I'm like, cool, I made it to 5, and I know that I have junk. Yeah. So I've survived the 5. So that's my driving style, of surviving. So I've had my butt handed to me by Fredonia Tire and Casey Smith my entire life, because they built like armor-plated cars because Nationwide just lets you go in with whatever. And I would show up with a 75 Merc that barely ran and smoked, you know what I mean? And I never had headers or anything. It was just a bent drive shaft behind my back that we welded in and called it done. You know, left the key in it, so it's pretty refreshing to see this type of love that you have, Steven.